one other example I want to give you all, this is the standard protocol that I often see, especially with little learners, like under the age of 3 or 4. So for example, you have a 2-year-old client who's instructed to sit and stack rings. The child pulls away and lets out a scream, which if any of you have ever been around a 2-year-old is a pretty typical thing that would happen. The adult grabs the child and sits them down in front of the ring stacker and holds a ring in the child's hand and forces the child to put the ring on the ring stacker. The child cries and then puts a ring on the stacker by himself and tries to leave. The adult grabs the child again and instructs to keep stacking the rings. Because probably in their program, it says they need to stack 3 rings or something like that. The child then throws themselves back to hit their head on the ground. The adult blocks this and directs the child to stack the ring. The child is forced to stack the ring again. The adult praises the child and lets the child leave. The child stands up quickly and runs away from the adult. So before I show you that slide, what exactly is being taught in this situation? What is this 2-year-old learning? What are we trying to teach them? Obviously, the person is trying to teach them how to play with a ring stacker. But if we look at this chain of events, what are they actually learning in this situation? I see to comply, do what I say or I'll make you do it, the start of challenging behavior, compliance, removal of autonomy, that we are not fun, etc. Yes. Hitting my head gets me what I want. When screaming doesn't. If I don't do what you want, you will move my body. Self-injurious behavior, running away from adults. Adults are aversive. Again, you all are amazing with your active participation. Thank you so much. So these are the things that came up for me when I think about this standard example. And you all mentioned most of these. 1, creation of more intensive challenging behavior. The child initially screams, and instead of honoring that as self-advocacy, the adult pushes forward. So that escalates to attempt to self-injure. We need to recognize our role in creating challenging behaviors. I had a client who was only 2. When I met him, he was like almost 4. But his mom has told me about how when he was 2, he started at a center. And within a few weeks, they started having 2-on-1 with this little 2-year-old because he was engaging in such high rates of self-injurious behavior. Never once did the adults who were behavior analysts think about what were they doing to contribute to this increase in challenging behavior. They just continued to blame the child and explain that he was a very difficult student to work with, instead of recognizing that they themselves were creating this more intensive, challenging behavior because of the way they were interacting with the child. This also teaches suppression of initiation and play behavior. The little 2-year-old clearly did not want to play with the ring stacker. And instead of following the child's lead and to see what it was that he wanted to play with, they forced him to stay in that situation. So the adult is forcing the child to play with the ring stacker instead of following their lead. The child is not given the opportunity to initiate with other items, and his attempts to initiate are blocked. And that's a crucial skill to have as a human, to being able to initiate and engage in spontaneous behavior. And then lastly, you're suppressing self-advocacy. So the child is trying to advocate for himself by screaming and resisting, and this is ignored. So this could lead to suppressing of that response altogether, which could lead in the future, as a child gets older, for them to not have any understanding of what they can advocate for. So if people try to do things to their body or expect certain things from them, they won't know that boundary of where to advocate and where it's okay. So it just teaches them blind compliance, and that's not helpful. In terms of, we're thinking about like physical or sexual abuse or anything like that. If you teach someone to just blindly comply with everything, they're not going to be able to advocate for themselves, especially in those high stakes moments. So this is a video example of me with my son as a supportive alternative. I do have a slide after this that kind of discusses everything that's happening. But I will just kind of lay the foundation for you. So he was in the lovely age of like about 18 months old, where a lot of little ones start to just throw things for the fun of it. but he was in daycare and you can't just throw stuff because you might hurt another kid. So we were trying to teach him how to set things down nicely when he didn't want them. In this video, before I started having the video run, he had thrown this truck here. So I was trying to get him to set the truck down nicely. And in this moment, this was in 2017, mid 2017. So about 5 years ago at this point, I'm trying to support him through how to understand, like, to set the toy down to keep playing. And like I said, I'll do some discussion after we watch the video.
This is a video of me following through on a demand with my son to put his truck down nicely after he threw it. You can see in the video that I'm moving him away from his toys and following through with the demand to put the truck down nicely. I'm assessing the environment and figuring out what I need to do to get him to follow the instruction. I push his toys away so that he's more likely to follow the instruction. And anytime he reaches for something, I block access to it and repeat the demand. I want to support him in being successful in following this instruction. So I'm also assessing what I can do to support him in following the demand. You can see that he reaches for me and wants me to hug him. I can't do that because that would be too reinforcing, but I do need to balance keeping him calm instead of having a tantrum. So I let him sit on my lap. Notice that I'm not hugging him or positively engaging with him. I'm just letting him sit on my lap to help him stay calm and follow the demand. Anytime he shows an interest in something, I will repeat the demand, but if he's not showing an interest in something, I will wait until he has an interest in something. I'm also assessing what could push us closer to achieving the goal of putting the truck down nicely, and I'm looking at his behavior to see if there are things that I can promote and reinforce that will get us closer to our goal. You ready to put it down nicely? He does move closer to the goal by picking up the truck. So I let him do that because he's putting it away, and that's closer to our goal of putting the yellow truck down nicely. Now I can capitalize on this momentum and have him put the yellow truck down nicely in his toy bin and give him all sorts of hugs and kisses and finally hold him as a reinforcer.
Okay, so just some discussion points for that. So this response was unique to my son, Taylor, and his needs in that moment. So for example, I didn't give him the juice. I knew that he had not had anything salty or anything where he would need a drink recently. If he had, I would have given him the juice. He could leave at any time. If he wanted to like walk away from putting the trucks down nicely, he could leave that situation. And then when he came back, I would have followed through on asking him to put the truck down nicely. Notice how I talked to him about what was going on. I didn't just block and redirect him. And honestly, knowing what I know now, 5 years later, I potentially could have talked to him even more. Like, I know you want to play with your toys. We just need to put our truck down nicely first. It's not safe to throw our toys. I could have had that kind of discussion with him. I was just going based off of what I knew at the time. Also, he is staying fairly regulated. So he's pretty calm. He comes and sits in my lap. Some people ask about like when I put him on my lap, if I'm forcing him. No, I know in that moment I was there. He was going along with me. It might look like I'm pulling him, but he was coming to sit in my lap. But he's staying fairly regulated. So he's not escalating. He's not getting more upset. What's different for me from what I learned when I first started in the field, as he's staying regulated, I continue, which is fine. However, if he had started having more difficulty, I would have increased the support that I was giving him, which we're often taught to do the opposite. We're taught to like pull back, remove our attention, not provide support, which I just don't understand. And every other skill we teach, when we're teaching matching or expressive identification or imitation, we provide prompting and we provide direct instruction on what to do. So when we're trying to work through teaching our little ones how to stay regulated and engage in replacements during a challenging time, why are we not providing that same level of support? That makes zero sense to me. So I potentially would have comforted him more and provided additional support if he had had more difficulty with it, to the point where I might have even said, this is too hard for you right now. I'm going to give you some space and we'll figure out when you're ready. And I would have just backed off, let him have his moment. And then once he was calm and more regulated, I would have come back and we would have practiced putting the truck down nicely at that point.